What's up guys, and welcome back to Gabe with Miller Music. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Korg Electribe 2 synth version. Going to be talking about its build quality, the synth engine, workflow, song construction capabilities, and who I would recommend this for. And along the way, I'll be comparing it to other groove boxes. To kick things off, let's talk briefly about construction. This thing is built like a tank. And that's a bit of a double-edged sword because on one hand it feels extremely sturdy, but on the other hand you can just visually see it's pretty big and bulky. This is a little less convenient to travel with than say an OP1 Novation circuit, or especially the MC101 that Roland released last year. But bulkiness aside, I definitely have no complaints about the build quality. The pads are responsive enough, the knobs are sturdy. This overall is a very high quality piece of equipment. You do start to see a bit of jank crop up when it comes to sound quality. Both the headphone out and the stereo output are notoriously noisy. My unit is especially noisy. There are workarounds that people have found to get that noise to go quite a bit of the way down, but that still does become an issue when you're trying to record it in live. The sound engine overall is pretty good, but it's a little bit of a mixed bag for me, and to explain why, let's talk about briefly how it works. So here you've got your choice of oscillator, and this is basically kind of a wavetable deal here. So you have a bunch of wavetables that you can cycle through, pitch control, and this edit knob here to be able to cycle through different frames of the wavetable. Filter here with resonance and controls for when it hits over time. Modulation, amp, all pretty standard as far as synths go, and some insert effects. And there are more settings in the menu that you can tweak, like changing it to mono or legato or poly. So on one hand, the wavetable nature of the synth and the modulation capabilities that they give it do make it very powerful and very flexible. I've gotten some pretty good gritty sound design out of it for more kind of bass music, and you can get prettier, more standard subtractive synthesis sounds out of it as well, along with a little bit of FM stuff. So it's pretty versatile and it's pretty powerful thanks to the large amount of wavetables they give you and the sufficient control that it gives you. However, because it is wavetable based, this thing occasionally ends up feeling a little less like a synth and a little more like a rompler, so something like Nexus in the software world, where you have a bunch of presets that you can tweak a bit and get some stuff out of, but you're still somewhat limited to the sonic characteristics of those presets. Some of this definitely comes down to inadequacies in my own sound design workflow and my skills as a sound designer, but some of it's also because a lot of the wavetables that they give you are really specific, and I can only imagine using some of these sounds that they give you in very specific circumstances. So better sound designers can definitely get more out of the synth engine than I can, but the feel of it and the wavetable slash rompler nature of it is definitely something that's worth knowing going in. Overall, the synthesis engine, while very good and very versatile, is not quite as deep as I would like. One area where the sound engine overall really shines, though, is its ability to do layers. You've got all of these areas to put sounds, and it's hard to hit a voice limit, at least for my own workflow, because there is a voice limit. Once again, that's also something that's worth being aware of, but if you're doing something that switches between a bunch of different synth patches and something with a lot of little moving parts, this will be very hard to hit a limit on. And you can build up some pretty complex multi-layered songs within this device before you hit the voice limit. That fact and the ability to design sounds from scratch are one of the things that for some people might make this a good choice rather than the Novation circuit. On the subject of the effects, there's quite a bit in here, quite a bit that's pretty good. You've got your standard delays, distortions, bit crushers, ring mods, all that kind of stuff. And one thing that's good to note, and that I couldn't find anything online when I was researching this, is the fact that there is a ducker in this, so you can get that sidechain pumping effect. But the thing to be aware of with that is that it's an insert effect, so you can't have a sound that's, say, distorted and ducked at the same time. You have to pick which one you want to do, and it's only 4 on the floor. It doesn't follow the kick or anything like that. I also want to note that you cannot have standalone reverb as an insert effect. That's got to be with the main effects send. And so once again, something to be aware of. I've not really had that be a problem, especially since the delays in here are pretty useful, but once again, something to be aware of going in. While we're on the subject of sound design and the overall sound engine, here are a couple examples of tracks I've made using this device. Moving on to workflow, this is where the device's relative age starts to show a bit. Because while it's intuitive after a while, it's a much steeper learning curve than other groove boxes that I've used, even more than the OP1, which is already a bit of a weird workflow. When I first jumped into it, nothing made any sense. It all seemed like this weird and counterintuitive and dense thing, and then eventually it all just clicked, and now using it is pretty intuitive, but there is a good amount of menu diving, and some functions don't seem optimized for a lot of Groovebox uses. To compare it to another Groovebox, which I've used a ton, the Novation Circuit's workflow in terms of intuitiveness, in terms of speed, just in terms of raw design, the Novation Circuit's workflow blows this out of the water. If you're looking to get your first ever Groovebox, the Circuit might be a better choice than the Electribe, because learning the Electribe is going to be a little bit of an uphill battle. That's not to say that the workflow is bad by any stretch, because it definitely isn't, but it does feel like a holdover from older gear and could benefit from some modernization. It's a little clunky. So let's get to what you're actually trying to do with this, and that's make songs. And what ways would be less or more optimized for song creation. So for me as a YouTuber, one of the things I look for in a device is the ability to do live jams. A live jam is great because it allows me to create something off camera whenever I happen to have time. You know, I like to set up a Groovebox in a coffee shop when I'm out and about and work on a track there, and then eventually come home and film a jam with my proper setup. And so being able to jam on a Groovebox is very important to me. And also, it's a lot of fun. It's a really fun, kind of intuitive way to make music, and also if you're looking into something for live performance that goes beyond just launching some clips in Ableton, having a Groovebox that can do live jamming is great. When it comes to that, the Electribe's not the best. Once again, to compare it to other Grooveboxes, it's much better than something like the OP1 for jamming, but it's not as good as something like the Circuit for jamming. In the jams that I've done so far on this channel, you'll notice a lot of them consist of either muting and unmuting parts, or just moving forward to the next session file, and then moving forward to the next session file. And that can be a bit boring to watch, and it's not that exciting, and there's not that much to do if you're trying to do like a proper live set. You can do stuff like lift the filter over time and change parameters over time to change the song's energy as you go, and it's also got the Chaos pad, but I don't find myself using the Chaos pad as much as I thought I would, although it is very nice to have it either as a master delay or a master EQ, so it acts as like a filter to transition between sections. That is nice to have, and this does have some pretty unique jamming features, but overall, you're not going to get that exciting or dynamic a jamming experience, especially if you're trying to have this hybrid DJ producer thing going on. You definitely can do that, and you definitely can jam with it, but there are better options out there if jamming is your top priority. However, this thing is still great for song creation for a couple of reasons. First of all, they give you a ton of space for session files. You can store a lot of them. So you can have a bunch of songs with a bunch of little sections all stored on this thing, no problem. That's great. And then the big thing that I find extremely useful is the ability to export stems. There's a micro SD card slot in this thing, and you can essentially export every single one of these tracks individually as either Ableton or WAV files. Bring them into your DAW and mix and arrange them like you would anything in your DAW. So you get the super clean output and the flexibility of cleaning these tracks up and making them really polished. So in that way, it's a lot more like the OP1, because that's a workflow I frequently see the OP1 used for, except this is a hell of a lot cheaper. All that makes my preferred song creation method on this thing: take it to a coffee shop, work on a track for a while, and once I get a bunch of elements going, export the stems, bring them into my DAW, and build out a properly polished song from there. It's a good hybrid workflow. It combines the inspiration of working on a groovebox wherever you may happen to be with the power and flexibility and fine-tuning you can do with the DAW. So who is this for? First of all, I recommend it for people who want a groovebox and absolutely need sound design as a part of their creative process. This is also a good device for someone who likes the hybrid groovebox and working with stems in a DAW approach, although be aware that stuff like the MC101 can do this as well. Going hand in hand with the sound design thing is bass music production. I have made some dubstep and some electro house that kicks some ass on this thing, and it is good for more sound design based genres. And finally, it's good for someone who wants a groovebox with more layers than other grooveboxes offer, especially for the price range. In terms of my own personal experience with it, I like it. I think it's a cool addition to my collection of gear. However, when it comes to grooveboxes, I find myself reaching for the circuit a whole lot more. It's more portable, it's much more intuitive, it's better for jamming, and the sound design engine is a little bit deeper. Whether or not someone likes the Electribe will definitely come down to the person and their workflow, their experience with other gear, and what they're looking for. Some people will absolutely love it and go, why would you use anything else? Some people will hate it and go, this is just clunky and weird. And I fall a bit more in the middle. I like it quite a bit, but some aspects of it do feel a little antiquated and a little bit clunky. So to answer the question in the title, is it worth it in 2020? Yes, but with some asterisks, and it depends on what you're looking for. So that is it for today. Hopefully this video at least made it clear whether or not this is for you. If you would like to see more videos with the Electribe, you can click or tap up over here somewhere. And if you would like to see a video about whether the Novation Circuit, another groovebox, is still worth it in 2020, you can click or tap down over here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back with a new video next week. Peace.